everybody.
Thank
Welcome to the Cookie Crumbles. Thank you for being here.
thank you for joining us. Camille, how are you doing today?
I'm good now that you just gave me like a 45-minute therapy session.
As usual. Well, today we're talking about today's podcast. We're talking about social learning, so that seemed appropriate.
There you go. Exactly.
So the organization for today's podcast is we are going to talk a little bit about the organizations. Organization is a word that I need to stop saying. In the dog training field that we know about, that we support. But once again, this is not a end all be all of do as we do, because there are way too many different personalities and perspectives, and everyone brings something else to the table that you're going to find out more valuable than me, and vice versa. So,
yeah. As always, we say it's important to keep your mind open. And even if you just take a little tidbit away and you run with it and it makes sense to you and that becomes part of what you do, hey, more power to you. Kelly and I believe you never stop learning, ever.
No.
You just
Neither do your
kind of
dogs. And that's the pain in the butt part about
right. They're learning every single moment of every day. Yeah.
Talking about, yes, exactly. And especially what we don't want them to learn. Ooh, okay.
Right.
I'm just thinking about how Pluto is really good at learning that if he puts something in his mouth and drops it, I give him a treat. And pretty much every time. So granted, he brought me glass the other day. Instead of taking glass and like chewing it somewhere else and swallowing it, he brought it to me so that I would give him kibble. That was lovely. But whenever we're eating something that he really wants off the table, he puts everything in his mouth and then eats it with his mouth wide open, like a so that we see it in the mouth, so that we'll tell him
what I'm doing, Mom.
Exactly. Tell me to drop it.
Yeah.
I need a treat.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be a good boy.
Yeah, come on, Mom.
Yeah.
I usually tell my clients to put things away at that point so the dog can't do the cycle of going to pick something up so that you'll tell him to drop it so that you'll give him a treat.
That the hard part with that is there's not enough things we could put away.
Right. Especially at Christmas, right? With all the holiday stuff out. Yeah.
Well, I mean, granted, there's things that I didn't even know we even had in the house. He's like, hey, Mom, look what I found. So sometimes it could be fun.
Sure.
I think the answer for me is giving him something appropriate to chew. So we typically give him a bully stick or a frozen Kong so he stops
mental
being...
enrichment, right?
Yes,
right.
Exactly. And I say it very begrudgingly because the answer typically is food. It keeps him occupied. And if he's not chewing something that's edible, then he's chewing something that I don't want to be chewing. So here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. So when we think about social learning, I had a client today that has the loveliest lab from Lucky Labs, which is a terrific rescue organization here in Charlotte. This lab tends to have, she's a little lab mix, but she has tons of energy. And she's so happy to see everybody, like over the top happy. So we actually talked about social facilitation, like if she got she was going to foster a dog to help the rescue and possibly help her own dog learn to relax a little bit, which I found really exciting. The problem with that is that most dogs that you rescue are not going to be that calm or not going to be that laid back. If they're that calm and laid back, they probably didn't get surrendered to a rescue. But when it works beautifully. Like it just works, and we've seen that happen. Other dogs can watch dogs and they can just calm, or they see, I mean, I think my mama dog taught my puppy that. She's not a puppy anymore, but I think Honey taught Lexi that when she was little, that Honey just laid down in the back seat and went to sleep when we were driving, to and from work every day. So Lexi did the same thing. She's like, oh, okay, this is what we do. So I'll lay down and go to sleep.
And I feel like we all could understand what that feels like in the sense of we've all been in groups of people. We've all had some of our behaviors either manipulated or potentially poked in different directions because of those around us. I know that when I'm with you, Camille, I don't want to talk as much shit about people because it's not how we communicate. And I learned from you
Right.
about how to be more professional. And so I think that when we're talking about this with the dogs, this isn't some magic pill that we're like, just watch other dogs go and they'll learn how to do it. No,
Yeah, no.
this is a thing that has been proven in people as well. Just if we can use it to our benefit, why not?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think too, like, and I take from you because I'm so introverted and you're so extroverted. I take from you like how to handle situations and how to talk to people. And, I pay attention like when we're with all the trainers and stuff. And I love all the trainers,
Mhm.
but I tend to be more quiet and just reserved and watch what's going on. And, you're in the thick of things.
I
And
just can't stop talking. Maybe I'll learn how to stop talking in the future as we do this podcast. But I don't
you're
think
so funny. But that's what makes you who you are, which is great.
and the same.
Um, well, and we learn from each other. Social facilitation, of course. I think we can always learn from each other.
Mhm.
My husband is another complete extrovert, and I try so hard to learn. I wish I could be funny like he is, and he's so brilliant that like funny just happens. Um, and I try to channel my inner Pete if I can, but I'm not always the best at it, but I do try. I do try.
I mean, I feel like it is important to like consider, and I think we were talking about this in group therapy, but how we're all basically genetically predispositioned to accept help from others because no one can do everything on their own. So fitting into a community feels good because not everyone is a dentist. Not everyone is a technician. Like, and I
Yeah.
think that from my recollection, there is something in our biology that encourages us to want to feel like part of the pack.
Well, and I would think that was part of our epigenetics as we've developed over, thousands of years, that being in a pack helps you grow and live and be.
Mhm.
I would say if it wasn't part of us in the beginning, it certainly got to be that way over the last however many hundreds, thousands of years. Um, I watched a friend this weekend who accepted help,
Yeah.
which I thought, yeah, that's really cool.
Mhm.
I would offer something. She'd say, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much for your help.
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do it for you. Like, I don't know, as part of, I think it's a give and take in friendship. And I think that other friendship was kind of missing that
Well, it's
idea of
really
it.
interesting in what you're describing because you're describing like kind of what made you feel comfortable, right? Which kind
Mhm.
of is one of the factors that goes into who you listen to and who you follow and what organizations you join, right?
Yeah.
You and I
Yeah.
are both volunteers at the IAABC Foundation.
Hmm.
That organization makes us feel good. We found a community there. We feel accepted. We feel like and I hate to use the term energy, but it feels like the kind of what we want to bring with this podcast of invite inclusive,
It's
let's
so
work
inclusive. Yeah.
together. If you honestly, very few times do I hear about people being wrong.
Hmm.
And if there is something we disagree with or that we'd rather not have as something that's being offered, it's not that it's wrong, it's just that it's not what we do and what we agree with.
Right.
And I think that vibe is just so inviting and makes me want to do more for the organization.
It makes you less fearful of adding ideas into it yourself. Like, you think of something that's really great. I had an idea the other day and I thought it was fabulous, and it was.
Yeah.
But I could understand, like my friend's point of, well, it really is, but it's not really what we're going for in this particular moment. And
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. When you look at it that way, you're absolutely right. And so we changed it, and that was fine with me. But I didn't feel bad for coming forward with an idea. I just felt like, everybody's throwing their ideas in, and here's mine. And so it wasn't chosen. That's not a big deal. But I didn't feel slighted. I guess
And,
is the thing.
and I feel like that the other organizations out there also offer that inviting community as well. But I think that we found it first with IAABC.
Yeah.
And so here we are. So we want to talk about a few of the other organizations. This podcast in the
Hmm.
beginning is more for beginning trainers and maybe just dog aficionados. Because if you've been in the field as long as we have, then you already know of these organizations that we're about to mention. So
Well,
probably
yeah, you probably already have your favorites, and
exactly. So you can skip for the next like well 20 minutes because we do want to talk about social learning and dogs and how we use it, but we also wanted to mention some of the organizations that are worth your time to look into if you're new in the dog field. And
yeah, absolutely.
awesome. And we did start with IAABC,
The foundation.
the
Well,
foundation.
they're sister organizations, the IABC and the IABC Foundation. They're
Mhm.
sister organizations. I find them very inclusive. It's not that, they don't want to shut down talk of, punishment-based trainers. They're looking for good trainers who know what they're doing and trying to work through it. But most of all, they are Lima
Mhm.
appropriate. So, I mean, you got to hit every thing about Susan Friedman's little pathway, her little road, and all the stop signs and the speed bumps and everything else. You got to follow that pretty darn harshly to and make sure before you move. And if you're a member of IABC, they do ask, if you decide to use punishment, you need to run it by us. Like, let us help you. Let us help you find another solution. Um, let us support you.
Mhm.
Um, I love the foundation in particular because I just love education, but that's totally separate.
Well, and the other organizations I think worth mentioning are the KPA, Karen Pryor Academy.
Yep.
They are, in my experience with them, they are a lot more proud of shaping, not luring, the funness of dog training essentially is
Mhm.
kind of where I hear more of their classes and their trainers put energy towards like getting things perfect. I did the clicker training professional course, and it's probably was my first time having to shape a
Mhm.
animal that wasn't a dog. I shaped a goat, and that was a lot of fun. But I think that they're also another great organization in the positive reinforcement realm.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think that they pretty much follow what we believe, the
Mhm.
positive reinforcement and clicker training, of course, but positive reinforcement and making sure that that the animal has choice and agency. And that's my thing. Let's give the animal choice and agency because I work with fearful dogs a lot, so when I do and I give them that choice, it makes life a whole lot simpler for them. A
It's
lot more
building
comfortable.
confidence. Absolutely. And that's really
Yeah.
when we're talking about social learning for us, we're not saying find the right path like that is the right choice because that just doesn't exist. Find the right path for you.
Absolutely.
What makes you
Yeah.
feel comfortable? What's inviting for you? And if you start getting a bad taste, hey, everyone's allowed to change their mind. And there's and really, I think that we're all trying to benefit the welfare of animals.
Yeah, I do believe that. And the thing is, it doesn't actually have to be about an organization. It can
Mhm.
just be about a person you're learning from or a workshop or
Mhm.
a thing, like everybody probably knows at this point that I'm a Susan Friedman freak. So I will follow her to the ends of the earth. But there are other people that I take things from that I really believe what they're saying. Um, but maybe I take what they're saying and I turn it into more something I can use every day.
Mhm.
Um, there's a fantastic certified horse behavior
Yes.
consultant, Gabriele Lencioni,
Mhm.
he's just amazing. He's amazing, and he's young, and he's trying to spread the word, and he's actually trying to spread the word for dog training through vets as well for positive reinforcement and stuff. But I listen to him and I think, okay, I can take what he just did with that horse and I can put it to a dog.
Right.
So I encourage people to, don't limit yourself. There's so much good information out there. I love listening to Gabrielle and learning from him. It's just amazing.
Have you had much experience with the Pet Professional Guild?
I have. I'm actually a member of the Pet Professional Guild. I haven't taken a whole lot of courses through them, but I did. I did take a course last fall through them in Florida that I really, really enjoyed on sit work. And so, our friend Jill and I went down to Florida and took their scent work course through the Hewings, Dr. and Mrs. Hewings that are in the UK. It was fabulous. I think the PPG overall is more in the positive reinforcement realm and only positive reinforcement. And you know what? There's something to be said for that. There's a lot to be said for that. I really like what they're thinking. I like what they teach. I like what they do. I find personally that I'm more aligned with the IAABC simply because I want to convert some other people.
Right.
I want to like open that conversation to people who don't train the way I do, and let's have a give and take. Let's have
If you
a
don't mind me asking, why
conversation.
do you still pay for, and I just interrupted you and just tell me to stop if you want me to, but
That's
why do you still pay to be a member of the PPG when you do believe in what the IAABC thought yeah.
So the thing I really support in the PPG is that they are trying to they do active things about banning shot collars and banning training that is punishment based, like harsh punishment based. And I really respect that. I really do. I think that somebody's got to do it, honestly. And it may not be the most heralded, thing to do, but I do believe somebody's got to start it somewhere. And I appreciate that they do that. So I do support them in that.
And really, I was just that's why I wanted to figure out. Yeah,
no. And then there's the fear-free certification.
Oh yes, absolutely. Are you're fear-free certified as well?
I'm fear-free certified as well. Yep. I believe in that as well, and I especially believe in it because they tend to focus more on cooperative care and like veterinary settings, and I think that's huge. I wish we could teach more people about how to make your dog comfortable going into the vet.
Yes. Now let me ask you something. From someone who hasn't taken the fear-free course, do they talk about how fear-free is impossible? How fear-free is impossible,
Yeah, so what their goal is to make it as fear-free as possible.
Got it.
So so they teach that, if your dog just can't handle it, maybe we need to make another appointment later down the road. Maybe we need to do some training in between now and then to let your dog be able to accept what we're doing more evenly and being less upset about it.
That's interesting. And I think that it's important to talk about in the sense that fear-free, force-free, it's all goals. Where when we use terms like this, we are addressing that the world is not force-free and the world is not fear-free, and that is just impossible. But making that a goal, I think, is absolutely admirable. That's cool.
Well, and going back to one of the other podcasts we had about labels.
Yes.
You put that fear-free or force-free label on it or positive reinforcement. Like, what does that mean? It can mean something totally different to me than it does the next person. I mean, if you're force-free and you put a leash on a dog, technically, if you define it that way, it's not force-free, but yet it's our laws and we have to teach it. So it goes back to that other podcast we had about labels and how they can be kind of a little dangerous.
Well, I mean, yeah, go ahead. I wanted to go down a rabbit hole if it's not even like involved that you need to teach a dog to walk on a leash. Like that's just realistic. But that is a complete rabbit hole that we won't go down. Go ahead, continue.
Well, and I had somebody this weekend actually say that force-free was wrong because they didn't give the dog choice, that the dog didn't have enough information to do the right thing. I didn't really agree with it because if you're doing your training correctly, your dog has lots of choices and you're helping him feel better about the choice that he's making that kind of aligns with what you want. And it's a progress. I mean, it's not a progress, a progression maybe.
Absolutely.
It's
Process.
not, it's not going to start out just the way you want it, but yet you help the dog feel better about making the choices that more align with what you want the dog to do.
Mhm.
Um, so I kind of didn't really agree with that, you know,
I
harsh kind of comment about force free, but then again, force free is a label and
Good for you.
we
Yeah.
all see that label differently.
Well, not
So
even that. I think that I'm starting to have a visceral reaction to hearing someone say that your style is wrong or your training is wrong. I mean, granted,
yeah.
the five freedoms are something that we talk about, I think, in every podcast, and that is something that
Oh yeah.
is right for us. And I say that I get it. I just said that I don't like hearing right and wrong, but that's my ethics right there. But when you're
Right,
talking
right.
about a technique that does not harm a dog, that we're trying just to help the dog feel more comfortable, confident, even if it's not how you would do it, it's not wrong. And
Yeah.
that I feel like is something we need to spread more in the dog world.
But sometimes I think we're all saying the same thing. We're just saying it with different words,
Yes. Yes.
right? So, whether you call it this or that or the other thing, sometimes I feel like you said earlier, we're all trying to help the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because we are so different and our backgrounds are so different, our environmental learning is so different since we've been born, we're coming at it from different angles. But
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, I think we
The end
get
goal.
there.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I'm going to agree with punishment, but yet in a punishment trainer's mind, they're doing the right thing.
Right.
Do
Well,
you
and
know what
I
I
mean,
mean?
you
Like,
have to even watch that, Camille, because we do some form of punishment in the sense of if, and maybe not even punishment, but like if my dog is trying to hump the bed into the TV, I'm going to stand in between him and the TV. Am I stopping a behavior? I am. Because me
yeah,
standing there,
blocking it.
yeah. So
Sure.
in a way, I am punishing a behavior. So even
Hmm.
those titles and labels, like it gets
Everything
so
has
easy to pick
everything
up.
has definitions. Yeah,
Yeah,
everything has definitions. Everything has slight little nuances. It's
exactly. And I
very
think
hard
that
to,
brings us
yeah.
back to why we're having this podcast about different organizations, because
Hmm.
everyone approaches it differently. And if you're the more of the sciencey brain, then I think you might enjoy the Certification Council for Professional Dog Trainers more as well. And
Right.
we are both CCPDT. I'm KA. Are you KA as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
And,
CBCC.
oh, you're a behavior consultant through them as well. That's
Yes.
right.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, and I mean, the IAABC, absolutely, science-based foundation, absolutely. But I get
Yeah.
more of a sciencey vibe from the conversations I have with CCPDT.
Oh, really? Interesting.
It's the vibe that I get. Now, I spend more time with the foundation,
Okay.
and
Okay.
it's more of a personal thing for me that feels comfortable that way. But like, this is also the reason why we're mentioning these organizations are so that you all can pick the one that fits you best.
Yeah. Yeah. Or multiple. Like I'm a part of all of them and I appreciate even APDT. I appreciate the differences they all bring into training. And I
Mhm.
don't want to negate any of them. I want to be a part of them and hear what they have to say and be a supporting member of them.
And we'll mention it, the Association of Professional Dog Training. The
Yep.
reason why, are you a member?
I am.
Oh,
Yeah.
go look at you. The reason why I personally haven't is when I first started, that they're the organization or one of the organizations that supports both positive reinforcement and balance training as well.
Hmm.
So I do know a lot of positive reinforcement trainers that avoid, it's a curse word to talk about the
Uh-huh.
APT, and that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying just to bring it to the table.
Well, so what actually kind of kept me there, and I
Mhm.
agree with what you're saying, but what kept me there is our friend Angie, our
Mhm.
mutual friend, who works for volunteers for APDT, and they're trying to move into the Lima model
Mhm.
where they're not shutting down punishment, but they're saying, "Hey, we got to follow the five freedoms, the Lima. We have a route that we need to try first
Mhm.
and do." Again, that's not saying that I do not support shock collar and things like that. In fact, at that point, I think it's a quality of life issue that you really, really have to consider if you think that, if you got to go there.
Mm-hmm.
But APD has joined the conversation about trainers certifications and making sure that trainers have the appropriate amount of information in
Excellent.
order to help dogs. Yeah.
I feel like that has
So
not come to the balance side. The
yeah, no.
certifications and things like that. I haven't seen a lot of that. But
Yeah,
I'm not educated that well on that either.
I admit I'm not either. And probably there's someone out there that's thinking, oh, well, balance training does this or that. That may be. And I do believe that there are really good balance trainers and there are really good positive reinforcement trainers, and they're
Mm-hmm.
probably doing their jobs great.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is there are so many people that do the job wrong
Mm-hmm.
that positive reinforcement doesn't hurt. Like you can fix if a positive reinforcement trainer doesn't really know what they're doing and may make a slight mistake or something, you can fix it. It's
It's not
hard to
because of
fix a
lifelong training.
punishment. Right. It's hard to fix a punishment-based trainer's mistake.
No, I
And while
absolutely say, just devil's advocate, as someone who had positive reinforcement her entire life until like probably 30, there's a lot of therapy I need on how to hear no, how to accept, how to build resilience and all of that. So there is some talk about which way, like that there's not just one way that fits everyone.
right.
And I agree with you in the sense that I'm not using any of aversive tools to teach a dog something like walking on a leash or anything like that. And we can talk about the reasons why, but I think that everyone is arguing so much in the dog training world right now that we don't need to even bring that to this podcast.
And I think that's where the outliers are. So you got the really good punishment-based trainers, I hate to say that, and you got the really good positive reinforcement trainers, and it's all the outliers that are arguing about stuff.
Mm-hmm. Because the people that have been doing this for as long as we have, we just don't have time to have these arguments.
Exactly. We're busy doing it right.
Quadrant that you're using, have fun. I am going to go send a recap to a client now.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Like, yeah, you do you. I'm gonna go take care of this client. I totally get that. And I just said like I am right. And I don't mean to say it that way. I have to come back and say I don't mean to say it that way. I believe what I believe, and
Exactly.
I believe, for example, positive reinforcement can make a difference, can make a good dog. But then again, I don't believe in asking my dog to do a military heel. I just don't. I could teach a military heel if I felt like it, but I just don't,
And
let her
that's
sniff.
each their own. So with that said, do we need to mention any other organizations that we haven't mentioned? We mentioned PPG, KPA, IAABC, APDT we even mentioned.
Yes.
This isn't an organization, but it's a school that I have found extremely helpful, and that's the FDSA.
Yes. Good
That's
education. Good
Benzie
education.
Dog Sports Academy.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of really beneficial classes, especially about dog movements and things like that. So as far as social learning goes, I do enjoy the information they offer.
Mm-hmm.
I always find myself going back to the foundation though, just because of, I think I have a positive learning history with the people in the foundation. So that affects my learning.
Well, and you have a behavior skew too. So, and
that is true.
For the most part, that's where the foundation does their education. FDSA, for example, Benzie Dog Sports Academy they do some behavior, but they really primarily are agility.
Well, sports.
And that's important to you. So like, I don't really use Fenzi a lot, but I don't discount them at all. It's just not, I just don't do agility. I don't do dog sports.
Right.
But I'm so glad Fenzi is there to do that type of education. Deb Jones, for example, does the cooperative care there. I could totally be on board with that, right?
Yeah, Deb Jones is awesome.
Deb Jones is awesome. Even their scent work, they have some good scent work classes as well, which are great. And they're structured so that even clients could take them, not just trainers, which I think is important. If we can get clients on board with that.
So and I think that's a good summation of organizations that we want to even mention and why we follow who we follow, what affects our choices when we do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Kim Brophy's.
Oh, well, yeah, totally worth mentioning.
FDM
Yeah.
is your
Mhm.
family dog mediator. The thing I like about FDM compared to the other ones is I think that that was the first organization that really put an emphasis on recognizing there's difference in genetics.
Yeah, I think she organized it. It's information we knew, but yet she organized it in such a nice way
Mm-hmm.
that it made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like it says, slow down. Don't think about just the training part, but think about this. Think about the LEGS,
Mm-hmm.
What is the L? I'm sorry.
L is learning
L-
history.
Thank you. Learning history, um, environment, genetics, and self.
Right.
And I think it's important to think of that. And sure, we should have been thinking of that all along, but it's really nice the way she put it forward and makes it, hey, you really need to think about this. And this is how you can, think of these ideas for each,
And
section.
really, like what I loved about what she brought to the table with FDM is the other organizations. It feels like you start at this level and you train, sit down, come stay, and blah blah blah, and then you learn behavior and like you gradually work your way into understanding behavior. Whereas if you start as an FDM, your foundation learning is including
Mm-hmm.
the reason why these dogs are doing these behaviors at a genetic level. And I think that is something we're missing out on if we completely ignore the genetic factor because every dog is a study of one. And yes, every dog is a study of one, but
Sure.
to completely throw out the idea that a herding breed isn't going to herd, like there's trends and tendencies that we typically see that should not be just thrown out.
Well, and I think legs kind of helps us look at the whole dog
Mm-hmm.
before you start thinking about a training plan, for example.
Absolutely.
I think I told you a while ago, I had this one client and I had been working with a sweet client, dedicated client, wonderful family. They had a giant herding breed and I had explained the dog to them. I had explained the breed. I explained everything. But lo and behold, when I literally copied a page out of Kim's book and gave it to them, I said, here, this is what your dog's doing. This is why. They read it and they're like, oh, so we should have listened to you the whole time because what you're saying is exactly what's in this book. And I'm like, yeah, a little bit.
It's almost like you're researching your craft.
I was like, so, but it made sense for them.
Yes.
I had already taught them that
Yes.
multiple times and tried to get them to understand it. But when I put it in front of them in writing from Kim Brophy's book,
Mm-hmm.
it just made sense for them. And hey, I'm good with that. If it helped them understand their dog and understand what had to happen to help their dog and to help them be
Mm-hmm.
more successful, hey,
Well, and I
that's
think
great.
that's a great example of why we all should try to learn from different organizations and different
Different people. Yeah.
people. Because when you hear something in a different way, you might actually hear it differently. And it's the same exact information potentially. There's a lot of the same information going around right now in the dog world, just in a different light. But it doesn't hurt to hear.
One that I think kind of spans the test of time is Leslie McDevitt's
Yes.
Control Unleashed.
Thank you.
Like her, I would love to be a CCUI because
I'm in the
if I had
program and you're the one that brought it up. I'm like trying to get the information.
I do believe in what she's doing,
Yes.
and everything she does fits into all these other programs, all these other things that people are using for an acronyms
Yep.
and new quote unquote um, ways of training. Her pattern games, let's face it, they give predictability. They help the dog understand what's going to happen next, even in a scary situation.
Mm-hmm.
And they help you figure out, oh, that dog is doing it, but it's still scary. So we need to fix it so the dog's not scared anymore.
I will say that Leslie McDevitt, the way she taught it is the first person that was able to help my brain understand that emotions come along for the ride in classical conditioning.
Yes.
I know
Yes.
that all the organizations we just mentioned have trainers that teach that concept, but it wasn't
Yes.
until I could see it in pattern games that I fully understood what she was trying to communicate. And I am so appreciative of that.
Yeah, she makes it click, right? So like
Yes.
she makes it so easy for us
Yes.
to say, oh, okay, I can use it here, I can use it here, I can, like for all these clients
Yes.
and all these situations. I was using 1, 2, 3 today to help a
Me
dog who's
too.
just
It's incredible.
way over aroused.
Well, and the hard
And lo and
part,
behold, she did it.
yeah, and it's so great to see, and it's so easy. But like the hard part being a newbie in the dog training world or just being a person trying to find a trainer, we just mentioned what 5 or 6 acronyms that all have value behind them.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
not you
They
pick
do.
one acronym. There's just so much more that goes into it. But I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
it's a really good way to sum up. Thank you for I'm glad you got Leslie McDevitt CCUI in there.
I
Um
love her. She's
I
amazing.
She really is. And like just talk about inclusive. Anytime you hear
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about, yes.
never putting down anyone. Um
Spot on.
and just because her stuff is so simple, you can see everyone else use it and put a different acronym to it. So it's tough. That's neither here nor there.
Hey, or people say, here's my acronym, and Leslie McDevitt's things fit right into my acronym. And I'm like, Leslie did it first. Like
It's just
Leslie pulled all the stuff into the stuff we've been doing for 20 years, like,
well, the different revision.
yeah. It's,
All right.
yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely.
I do. Shall we move on to social learning in dogs
Yeah,
and how
absolutely.
we use it, what we do with it? Because I do find, and because hounds aren't the most food motivated dogs, when I have a house with more than one hound, I ask which one is more operant. And I really do take the opportunity to build the behavior we're looking for with the one that's more operant. And then every single time the second one starts following suit.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as, I praise Honey for doing the right thing, and Lexi follows along because, like, oh, look, Honey got attention.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can be as simple as that, or you're teaching something. I remember, oh gosh, I remember teaching Lexi when she was a puppy to wait for her food, just
Mm-hmm.
calmly. I'm going to give it to her, and I'm not real picky about how she does it, but I do need her to not like mug me while I'm trying to fix the bowl. And Honey had been trained already. Like, she knew if I just wait, my mom's going to put it out for me, and I'm golden. The look on Honey's face when she watched Lexi trying to learn that, because Lexi's a puppy and she's bouncing around and she's so excited. She's like, Mom, is it food? Is it food? And I'm like, yeah, baby, it is, but I need you to hold on a second. And Honey's looking at her like, if you would just sit down, she would feed us. I mean, like, it was so, like, you could totally read her mind. And I swear that's not anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism. Um, she's like, dude, just sit down. Um, it's amazing how that social learning can work.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, I have to give one more example.
Bring it on.
Social learning. If you've got a good mama dog,
Yes.
holy cow, you've
Yes.
got like a gift. And I think there are certain, we follow certain trainers who have these fabulous dogs who are teachers. I'm not going to say that's my dog. But one time, my mama dog got really frustrated with her puppy,
Mm-hmm.
and she turned around and just caught the puppy's whole muzzle
Yeah.
in her mouth. She
Yeah.
didn't bite down.
Right.
And I for the podcast, I don't know if you guys can see this, but she took her entire mouth and enclosed the puppy's mouth muzzle in her muzzle,
Yeah.
but didn't bite down.
Yep.
Can I tell you, my puppy froze like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I think I did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, maybe I'll just go over here and lay down. and and it was teaching, which is beautiful social learning, without harming. Like, it was just a proper what's the word,
Correction.
proper Was that?
It's almost a correction, right?
Yeah, it was a proper correction. And I trusted Honey at the time, just to be clear. I knew Honey could do it. Like I
Mhm.
knew she had proper corrections in her. That being said, that was the only time, single time in 14 years, no, in 10 years that she has done a proper correction. Otherwise, she just lets Lexi do whatever the heck she wants to do,
Well,
which is
it's so
really bad.
though, because like I agree with you that and working in multiple daycares, having a dog be able to tell another dog to knock it off appropriately, oh my gosh, it
Yes.
makes life so much easier. But then we
Wow.
have the conversation of what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, right? So what would you have
Sure.
said if what would have made what Lexi was doing or what Honey was doing inappropriate? What behavior in that situation of Honey grabbing Lexi and being like, knock it
Mhm.
off, what would have
Right.
made that inappropriate for you?
So if Honey had bit down and
Like
hurt
broke skin?
Lexi, yeah. Oh, well, even just made her yelp.
Okay.
Lexi didn't yelp. She just froze. Like, oh, I think I did something wrong.
But that's
Like she
hard to even,
literally froze.
and I don't
And
mean to,
that's a skill.
yeah, but think about all the puppies that cry when they're being, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you say that if another dog is correcting another dog and the puppy cries out, that's too much. I don't know if that's even a good gauge as far as what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, right?
Well, I do look for damage.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna look to see, did she use enough bite pressure to really
Hmm.
hurt the dog?
Hmm.
Or was the dog just yelping because it was scared? In my case, it was easy to see because Lexi didn't even yelp. Like she just like froze, like, oh, I think I made a mistake.
Hmm.
And it was beautiful learning.
And the behavior stopped on both parties. I think that is point to show out that if either Lexi kept doing the obnoxious behavior or if Honey kept needing or wanting to correct Lexi, that for me would have crossed the line to inappropriate.
Well, and let's face it, if she had to do another correction, it probably wouldn't have been as gentle as it was, right? So
That's
if
true.
if Lexi kept doing the behavior, Honey would have escalated. Like,
Absolutely.
okay, I said don't do this, and she
And
would
that's
have
not
gotten
Honey's job to
more.
have to feel that feel. It's not Honey's
Right.
responsibility to feel that frustration to escalate her behavior. And that's why I think this conversation is really important as far as the dog owner, when to step in.
Hmm. And to think of it another concept, like there are a lot of dogs. Is it Pat Miller? No, I, it's not. It might be Pat Miller that had a wonderful, wonderful dog
Mhm.
that helped other dogs calm just by the presence. Like her dog would. It was a
Or Trish McMillan. Her
I'm
pity. Theodore is,
oh, Theodore. Oh yeah, you're right.
I
Yeah,
think she was just
Theodore's
like that a
awesome.
lot too.
So it's like those dogs that show them that you can lay down and be calm
Yes.
and it's not a big deal.
Well, let me even, so my example would be in class this morning. I have an adolescent shepherd. She has two litter mates in the class as well. So it's really fun watching from a trainer perspective.
Oh, wow.
This particular shepherd, she's really struggling walking around the neighborhood. She's fearful of loud sounds. Trucks are her Achilles heel. She will not walk out of the backyard. And so mom made some progress using a little Frenchie to help her walk in the backyard, but there was an incident where she saw a truck and now we're back to square one. With
Uh,
that said, our class this morning is the most hectic location of classes on out of the town, which is we go to 6 different spots in town to
okay.
really just be a dog in the world.
Hmm.
Today was shops, meaning we are walking shop front. It was on the sidewalk next to a busy road. It was on a greenway next to a busy road. So it was loud and we weren't able to have that calm decompression walk that we typically include in our out on the town classes. The mom told me, she's like, I don't understand how my dog is doing so well because it's loud. I'm even nervous. Like, and she's just acting like this is nothing. She's eating treats for me like it's nothing. And I said, this is our 5th class.
Right.
The last 4 times your dog has been around this group of dogs, everything has been fine. She's worked, she's had fun. So that's where social learning is benefiting her. And she's like, well, why isn't this working at home? And I said, you don't have the reinforcement, the learning history essentially.
Mhm.
of safety and security with these dogs in this context. And I do suspect that the punishment history outweighs the reinforcement history in her neighborhood.
Ooh. Ooh, I hate to hear that. That
It's
the
because of
punishment history is larger.
not punishment history from the owners, punishment history from the
Right,
environment.
right.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Sure.
And the crazy thing is a truck passed today and it wasn't aversive at all to her. But if a truck passed her in her own neighborhood, she'd break in half. And
Isn't that interesting?
social learning, that's for
Hmm.
me the power of it. Now, granted, this could be in addition to social learning. We're talking about different contexts, different associations. But I told her, I said, I think that your dog is doing as well as she's doing because look around, all the other dogs are doing the same thing.
Right, right. That's
And that's,
excellent.
yeah.
See, and when you can get a second dog that
Mhm,
behaves that calmly in a home
mhm.
with a dog that's kind of off the charts, it does help. It
It can.
does help them be calm. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, and
I
even look
watched
at
a
this. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, speaking of Theodore, I watched a video of Theodore this weekend. With For those that don't know, Theodore belongs to Trish McMillan, and they live on Pibble Hill, which is fabulous, and you guys should totally follow them. So Theodore was sitting on a bed out. This is outdoors, like so. Pibble Hill they have horses, goats, chickens, dogs. There's something else because I think there's five, but anyway. So the dogs are running around. She has a beautiful Doberman
Mhm.
named Iris. And so Iris is kind of young. She's got lots of energy. And so she's running by at Theodore just like crazy. And Theodore's standing on his bed, but he never moves. Like he just stands there like, okay, she just went by. But he doesn't feel the need to chase. And
Mhm.
like Trisha's other small dog is chasing and chasing and chasing. And Theodore is just Mr. Calm, cool, and collected, just standing there going, what are you people doing? Like that's not the way we behave. It was the cutest thing. It
The
was
hoodlums.
so yeah, Theodore is just so amazing.
That's
So if you
great.
don't follow Theodore and Pibble Hill, you should probably watch it because there's a lot of great things going on there with
I
Trish
think you're
McMillan.
you're mentioning something that's really important when it comes down to social learning, which is also the other parts of legs. If I have a senior dog that I want my puppy to learn from, I'm going to have much more success having that puppy learn from the senior dog after the puppy's needs have been met, after the puppy
Yes,
has
good
had
point.
physical stimulation and is
Yep.
exhausted. Because if I'm trying to have my senior dog show my puppy that when we're watching TV, we do nothing but relax, then I need my puppy to be in a state of being where relaxation becomes easier.
Right, where it's accessible. So if you
Yes.
haven't met all those other needs, that relaxation, it might happen, but it can't easily happen. Let's
You're
say
not
that.
talking about a
Let's
magic
set him
show,
up.
unfortunately.
Right. We're talking about setting him up for success.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a hard thing because I think that 50% of calls are fix my dog. I want an easy button. Can I just get another dog and that will teach this dog? And I wish that
Hmm.
that could be the case. And there are those few cases that a client has gotten another dog. And even if I didn't think it would work, it did. And I had to eat my words. Don't know how and when. I think I have more cases where it was more work for the owner, but I do have a few cases where they played the lottery and won.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think several trainers have um, eaten their words basically. One of my friends this weekend was telling me, she's like, oh, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. They got the dog, it totally worked. And she's like, okay, I eat my words. Like you found the perfect dog that's going to work, and that's what you needed, which is lovely. We all want that for our dogs, for our clients rather.
Oh, what
You
an
know,
easy button. Absolutely. As far as the do as I do method, because
yes.
it was
Why don't you
discovered
tell
by
us a little bit about that do as I do? so people
Well, so
kind of have a
I know
clue.
the history as far as it was discovered by the ethologist and dog trainer Claudio Fagaza. Um, the cool thing with this, and I've seen a few different presentations where trainers are using it in a really cool way, where they have a cue that says "do as I do" essentially, and the dog watches what the owners do, and then they replicate it. So the most interesting example I saw was the owner had agility equipment out, and the owner crawled through a tunnel, went a 360 around a weave, or not even a weave, just a jump pole, and then stood on a platform before coming back to a station. And then she said, "Do as I do." And the dog went and did the same exact thing she did, which I just found so fascinating and exciting that it's a concept people are using.
Oh, I think it's excellent. I had a trainer friend here who had a dog where she would like turn around
Mhm.
and her dog would turn around. You know,
Yeah.
like she started playing with the do as I do kind of concept, which I mean, if you think about it, dogs learn by body language.
Mhm.
So that's great information to a dog. You know, what kind of practice you need to get to that behavior.
Right.
I don't know. Like, how do you get to that dog that goes through the tunnel after I go through the tunnel? And
I would suspect you teach each one separately. Just so,
right.
yeah.
And then
So
build a chain.
yeah, exactly. I think the problem is there's no method that says do it exactly like this and this will work for you, because
Right.
each of our dogs are unique individuals. So once I realized that's the case, dog training became a lot easier for me, in the sense of
Right.
I wanted the magic answer. I was looking in every
Oof.
single trainer out there, give me the magic answer. I want to follow your stuff and have this manual, and it just doesn't exist. Granted, I can
No.
myself feeling comfortable following only Leslie McDevitt, but I also want to follow others because of the conversations we had today and reasons for that. But it could be easier following that one trainer and just do it as they do it.
It's easier, but does that really make you a good, well-rounded
Well-rounded.
trainer?
Right. And
Right.
I agree with you 100%. I don't
Yeah.
think that easy isn't always the right way, unfortunately.
Right. Well, and this goes back to one of our earlier podcasts where I told you about I was sitting in a like a 1 hour webinar, and
Mhm.
somebody from our city who I had mentored texted me and said, "Wait, why are you in this webinar?" She's like, "No, you're like," I guess she saw me as having a completely um fulfilled or whatever it is company, and I didn't need any help.
You
And
know everything you
but
no, there's nothing to
yeah, I know everything. But I told her, I was like, but what if I learned something? Like,
right.
what if this webinar teaches me that one little thing? And it was free webinar for that matter. And I was like, I'm gonna learn something if I can. I'm here. I might as well sit and listen to it. And of course the people that gave it were fabulous. Um, but anyway, I guess that's my point. We always learn, and we're always looking for that, even if it's just a little tidbit of information that
Mhm.
somebody can give you that you thought, I can take that and run with it because that makes sense to me. That's how I do it.
Mhm.
I think
Well,
that's
it is. I
wonderful.
think that absolutely. I think social learning is just something that, to while you may not use it in your training techniques with dogs, like two dogs at one time, if you completely throw the baby out with bathwater in that way, you're going to be missing a piece of the puzzle. So
Sure.
if yeah, and I think that I'm glad that we hit on it in this podcast, just because it's a part that if you're doing all the right quote unquote work with your dog to have beautiful loose leash walking, but then you walk with your neighbor and they're pulling and barking all the distractions, and your dog just starts falling into suit, recognize social learning might be counting against you in that way.
Right. But I mean, also, isn't that part of socialization that
Mhm.
puppies can learn from each other and dogs can learn from each other, and, what bite inhibition is, and, how to read body language and stuff like that. I mean, we've all worked with as behavior consultants, work with dogs that don't understand body language because they never had that opportunity to learn it, reinforce it, and keep going with it,
Mhm.
So some have a deficit.
Well, and I also,
Um,
yeah, I think your point as well, in the sense of, as the brain and body develops, they're looking for different social information from their colleagues.
exactly. Exactly. Absolutely. And their bodies change over time, just like ours do.
Mhm.
Right. So a teenager is looking for different information than a
Senior
preschooler
citizen.
is. Yeah. Or a senior citizen. Exactly.
Yes.
We're all looking, we change throughout time over our whole life. Nothing stays the same.
Mhm.
Um, I just think social learning is wonderful. And if you think about it, it starts from the moment they're born. They learn from their mothers and their siblings,
Mhm.
whether it's a dog or a chimpanzee or a horse.
Well, even us. I remember as a kid, I wanted to do everything that my brother did until
Yeah.
I think I hit high school. Then I very quickly learned I wanted to do everything the opposite way that my brother did.
Right.
And our dogs go through the same cycles as they develop, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're important cycles, especially for dogs, because let's face it, we can't do the body language dogs can do to teach other dogs.
This is
We have
such
limitations.
a convoluted topic, though, right? In the sense that there are some dogs that when you're taking a deep breath or yawning, they absolutely follow suit,
Mhm.
right? But are you training them anything in that situation? No. In order for this technique to work with another dog, they have to trust you. You have to have that level of relationship going. So when I first started, I remember there was a trainer that got into an argument about, but why doesn't the ow? Like, why aren't we doing that? Because that's what puppies do. And I think that in some situations, if you use that ow, that hurt, that can teach a puppy that same thing. But I find that owners overuse it.
Yeah.
That it's ow, 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 ow. And so they're habituating. So the dogs quickly learn that when the humans use ow, it doesn't mean the same as when puppies use ow. And once again,
Right.
this is me saying my perspective, and something completely different than what's actually happening could be happening, and that's behavior. But I do think that the more we try to act like dogs, they habituate to it, and the conversation goes out the window.
Yes. Yes, they do. The other thing I think about that too is sorry about the Yelp.
Yeah.
I think it and can hit an intrinsic mode in a dog,
It
and
hikes.
and prey can kick in. I had that with two smaller dogs that lived together, and one dog would jump on the other would yelp, and it was
Game
game
on.
on. Like it was. So I'm careful using that. You might try it once, the yelp part, when people say "ow," so when they bite, so they'll
Yeah.
stop biting.
I think
But
for me,
I'm cautious with it.
well, I tell my clients, I'm like, if you yell out because it hurt, then yell out because it hurt. Don't yell out because you think you're teaching your dog anything.
Yes, yes, yes.
I
Yeah,
think
it's
I
a
got that
different
from Liz
tone,
Randall.
right? It's a totally different tone when you're hurt and when you're teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
even then, oh my gosh, that's a conversation in itself. I think this was a really good summation, though.
Yeah,
One
yeah,
thing we didn't
terrific.
talk about that I just want to bring back to the table, because I think we've talked about it in previous podcasts, but Sarah Owing's emotional cup. Uh,
Oh, I love
when
the
you're
emotional
trying to,
cup. Yeah,
it makes it just like how legs makes everything organized in that aspect. Her emotional cup helped me organize more, just be more mindful, I think is the
sure.
term I'm looking for. So talking about who I want to follow and who I want to listen to. When I listen to Leslie McDevitt, my cup fills. I leave those webinar seminars with more energy. Granted, I might be mentally exhausted because some of it is really heady stuff that I want to digest more, but I have
Right.
energy to go do things. When I
Nice.
listen to, and I try to listen to some balanced trainers to expand my education or just hear where others are coming from. I'm exhausted after the fact. I might have
right?
been yelling
Takes a lot.
while I was listening to
It's
them.
like you're listening and your emotions are boiling under there. And
And it's not all balanced trainers that I listen to that I feel this way, but there are certain trainers that I listen to that I'm like, this did not make me feel good afterwards. So
yeah,
when I don't have the energy to do it, I'm not going to listen to them. And if there are balanced trainers that do fill my cup, J Jack is one of them. I don't mind listening to J Jack. He has some really good information, and Chad Mackin too. I don't agree with everything they say, but they have the Canine Paradigm, I think, is their podcast. And I do enjoy some of their conversations.
Mhm.
There are times where they fill my cup. There are times when they empty my cup. And I think just that mindfulness for each person is helpful.
Mhm.
And I also
Yeah.
think that that goes with social learning with our dogs. Because there's times that our dogs are playing with other friends and they're getting ramped up and they're learning, and you can almost see an exhaustion happening. And I want you to be cognizant when you are having your dogs in play groups of, are the play groups filling their emotional cup or emptying their emotional cup as well? Because it goes both ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The whole idea of the emotional cup is a great thing to think about. And I don't think we slow down enough to really think about the dog's emotional cup. I
Absolutely.
guess, people like Brene Brown and wonderful people like that make us think about our emotional
Yes.
cup.
Yes.
But I don't think we think about the dog or whatever animal it is, what their emotional cup might be.
Well, and it's also worth mentioning, I don't know why I do 50% of the things I do. So we are all absolutely making guesses of not only our own behaviors, but our dog's behaviors as well. Proof is in the
Sure.
pudding. You got to know if your dog's happy or not. But also, as you're trying to gauge your dog's emotional cup, maybe try to also gauge if you're creating self-fulfilling prophecies.
Yes. Good point. Very
It's
good point.
it's complicated. Everything's complicated. Behavior.
Imagine that.
Wait, everyone can't do it?
Really?
Everyone can do it, but we have to consider different things. I think this was a good summary. Is there anything else you want
Yeah, yeah. No, no. Just thank everybody for listening and being here for another episode of Cookie Crumbles. Again, where we kind of dissect all the tiny little crumble pieces, crumbs that come apart from what ends up being behavior, basically.
And
That's
I
our
mean,
behavior cookie.
it's interesting because we were talking about the different organizations. I think Cookie Crumbles is another way to say legs, you know?
Hmm.
So, and just, we're not saying we're right and they're wrong. We're saying we're all have something to bring to the table. So
Well,
please
yeah,
be kind as you learn from others and listen to others, that instead of saying, I have more to bring to the table, think about what they have to bring to the table as well.
exactly. Because everybody has something that can contribute.
Exactly. And Camille, that's the way the
The cookie
cookie.
crumbles. Very good.
We'll see
Thanks
you
for joining us, you
soon.
guys. See you soon.
Our next podcast, it will most likely be about resource guarding. We are going to take
Oh,
a short break over the next week or two, potentially longer. We're giving this a go to see how that we're giving our podcast a soft release. If you like what you hear, please let us know. And we'll have all of that organized and I'll add it later. We'll add that to the thing.
excellent.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. We'd love to hear from you. Please let us know if you like what we hear or you have a topic that you want us to talk about. We'd love to talk about it with you.
Don't have a problem talking.
Absolutely right.
Have a great week, everyone, and be kind to you and your dogs.
Yeah, good night.